Hi, my name is Bill Oliver, and this is my YouTube channel, Boston Devops Bill. The section which I'm going to cover today is called provisioning. This is the very first section of what will probably be quite a number of sections. What we're designing here is a virtual hybrid DevOps environment which spans both a virtual environment which we create and deployment to the AWS cloud where we'll be running our applications. So to begin with, this section here called provisioning is where we're actually going to start. And we're going to start with 5 modules, the provisioning utility, Kwise, which is a parsing utility, in order to go through different files and select content from that file. We'll build a open source build framework in order to build Linux, and we'll use GnuPlot in order to monitor our build statistics and metrics. And we will use Puppet and Docker. Puppet will be used to keep our environments in sync, and Docker will be used to run our applications. The provisioning utility utilizes Vagrant, and Vagrant has an extensible language through the Ruby language, so we'll use Ruby to actually build up our Vagrant file in order to support the features which we need when we begin spinning up these environments. We're going to utilize VirtualBox, which will be our virtualization host, and we'll spin up boxes of CentOS 7. Each node which we spin up will have a name. It'll have a file share where we can access a common area across all of the virtual machines, which will facilitate us being in a dynamic environment, or simulated at least, where we can share content between these different machines. We'll be networking, so the networking will actually be utilizing the file share in order to ensure that each one of the nodes that we spin up or boot up after a new node is introduced, we can update our host files in order to connect to them. My backbone is very simple, simple router on my IBM PC. So each one of these virtual boxes which we create will utilize, my basic network, and it will also be able to communicate with AWS. So for storage on these individual nodes, what we're going to do is we have 3 different types of storage systems which we can use. We will be able to create a volume group. We'll be able to do thin provisioning, and we'll just be able to have a raw disk of X size. We'll be able to specify all that. And what we're going to do is we're going to describe each one of these nodes using JSON, and then read a JSON file, configure our node inside of Vagrant using Ruby to assist us, and then we're simply going to be able to launch these individual virtual machines in order to do our development, in order to do testing, in order to do packaging and deployment. Now, the Kwise utility is a utility that we're going to create here. We're going to use the Go programming language, and what we're going to create is a 3-statement language, which covers page, paragraph, and sentence. And those 3 statements are going to have the ability to have attributes on them. Actually, only the sentence will have attributes initially, and those initial attributes will be to collect a line of text and to collect a line up into a token. Okay, and so we'll have basically 2 types of statements. We'll have pattern statements and we'll have collection statements. And this will be written inside of Go. We're going to use this to actually parse through some web pages in order to build a bot. And this bot is going to act like another human being, okay? And it's going to keep track of all the dependencies between different builds and libraries that we may want to examine using when we start to spin out containers. And that will be a big boon for us. The OpenWork build framework will be structured where it has a bin. It'll have build templates, which we can include our timing framework so that we know how long these individual builds are taking. It's not really that important because a lot of these are going to be one-off builds, but as we move down and as we begin to spin up custom kernels in order to support our containers, it could be very, very useful. Okay, so we'll have the templates there. We'll have our utilities that will probe our machine for kernel devices, identifying what drivers we're using, so that we can also build a generic testing type of microkernel that will help us, debug whatever issues we have when we spin up these containers, okay? And then we can, deploy them off to AWS and, use Kubernetes or use Docker Enterprise, to actually manage all the different types of containers which we have running. We're not going to do a lot because, we don't want to, spend our life savings, on time sharing for AWS, but they're terrific guys, and their product, really what we're doing, we shouldn't run up more than maybe 50 cents, if that. So we also have config files, and those config files will be the kernel config files which we want to save. And the reason we have them separated out is because they have each kernel config file has about I think it's 10,000 different config settings, and naturally we're not going to use all of them, and we're not going to build a kernel with all of them. So we're going to slice them down, and we're going to create kernels that are specific to our application. So we want to be able to keep that nice and handy. We'll be using Git as for individual repository components throughout our infrastructure, build infrastructure. And when I say build infrastructure in this case, I'm simply talking about the Devops infrastructure, the Kwise, the frameworks, the logs, the statistics, things of that nature. And we're going to also manage our Puppet environments within Git. As I mentioned before, we're using Puppet to synchronize our environment, delivers content for packaging and staging. In Docker, of course, we're going to use for our containers, okay? So that's pretty much the overview of what I'm going to build with you on this channel. So I really hope you enjoy it. We're going to begin immediately with the provisioning. So I hope you like pounding keys, and I hope you have a lot of fun. All right? So thank you very much, and hopefully you'll hit that subscribe button because you'll love what I'm going to present to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.